I'm so excited about this. Oh my goodness. Okay, so if you're new here, hello. My name is Gabrielle. I'm an intuitive channeler. And I recently went to a retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I had a lot of clarity during that retreat where I said, I want to speak to the masses. I feel it is in my heart and a part of my soul purpose to be a spiritual leader and a teacher. And I know that I would not have the gift that I have, which I'll talk about in a second, if that weren't my soul's purpose. And so I'm ready to just step into this, own this, and answer as many questions of yours as I possibly can. I have the gift of being able to speak to the higher realm. So I can connect to people's intuitions, to their higher selves, to people who are present or crossed over. I speak to the higher realm, my spirit team, which I'm going to talk about in a second as well. I have a gift of being able to get the answers that so many of us are searching for in our human experience. And that's what I want this podcast to be. I want it to be the answers that you're looking for. I want it to answer your questions around manifestation, around your intuition, around connecting with yourself, around your soul's purpose, around your journey. That is the goal of this podcast. I want to share as many secrets from the universe as I possibly can. So I want to go through some, we'll call them ground rules, I guess. I don't know how often I'm going to upload these podcasts, and I'm ready to own the fact that I do things differently. I work differently than most, and I've spent almost 30 years of my life shying away from that. I'm ready to own that. So I don't have a strategy for this podcast. This podcast is off the cuff. I might write down little notes of things I want to say, but that's it. I'm not reading a script. I'm in my guest room. I'm sitting in my office chair. I'm wrapped in a blanket, and I'm recording these on video too, so that you guys can feel like you're just like sitting on the couch with me. I would record these down in my couch, but I live on a busy street, and I feel like you guys could just like hear sirens and cars all day. So I'm in my guest room, and this morning I woke up and I did a meditation, and I said, where feels good for me to record these? And right away I heard my guest room. It's white in here. There's a beautiful window right here, just the backyard. It's quiet, and everything in here is white. White is abundant. It's a high vibration. And so I am just feeling in all my glory right now. So I am going to intuitively drop these podcast episodes. Follow me on Instagram. I'll let you guys know when they're live. But I'm not going to sit here and say that they'll be on here every single Monday or anything like that. I just don't work like that. I don't work well like that. And as I said, I've spent about 30 years working that way, and I'm done. I'm over it. I work intuitively. I want to normalize that, and I'm going to start normalizing that by doing it myself. So as a result, I'll let you guys know on Instagram when these drop. So follow me on there. And then also, because these are non-scripted, I'm going to say I'm going to have pauses. I really want this to feel like you guys are sitting down on the couch with me, having a conversation and getting your questions answered. I'm going to be wrapped in a blanket. I freaking love blankets, and I usually have them wrapped around my face to like lean up against them. So I'm probably going to start doing that as well. But I am just kicking my feet up on my guest bed. I'm lounging in this chair, and I'm here to have conversations with you guys. So I guess the next conversation I want to have in terms of what to know about this podcast, and it's one that I've been pretty nervous about introducing because I'm a human and I go through my own healing journey just like everyone else. And I don't even really know how to introduce it, so I'm just going to kind of brain dump here. But this is going to be a channel podcast. And so what that means is I'm going to act as a vessel for the universe. Where before I sit down, just as I did before this, I'm going to ask the universe to speak through me, because I have that gift of being able to translate what they're trying to tell me and regurgitate it out to you guys. So this is a channeled podcast. And in my own spiritual journey, since becoming a channeler, I've gotten really curious about who is feeding me this information when I'm not channeling somebody else. And I recently got into breath work. If you guys haven't tried it yet, highly freaking recommend. But I recently got into breath work, and as I was doing my first round, I just felt this level of calmness I don't think I've ever felt in my entire life. And then I went into a breath retention. And so if you guys know what that is, or don't know what that is, rather, it's when you're doing breath work and you pause for like a minute or 30 seconds or 90 seconds or whatever. And in this instance, I think it was like 90 seconds. And my body wasn't panicking. I was literally just holding my breath, and it was beautiful. And I heard this guidance so freaking clearly, and it said, you have a team. And I was like, okay, this is bizarre, because I love Abraham Hicks. So Abraham has given me so much insight on my spiritual journey, right? And offered me just, it's been very calming for me. And I remember listening to Esther's story, and she was saying, and this was probably 6 to 9 months ago that I was listening to the story, and she was saying how she would just meditate all the time, and all of a sudden her team became clear to her, and her team was Abraham. And I had this bizarre experience where I'm in this breath retention, and I heard so clearly, you have a team as well. And I was like, what the hell? But like, I didn't really react like that because I wasn't in my conscious mind. I was like in my physical body. I don't know how to describe it unless you do breath work. I just like wasn't consciously thinking. And then it went blank. And so then I just kept going about my business. I did another round, and a retention came up again, and I heard, and their name is Laura. And I was like, what? And I finished the breath work, and I sat there for probably an hour, just sat there. And I was like, holy shit, this makes so much sense. So let's talk about that. My middle name is Laura, and I pronounce Laura like somebody from freaking Boston does. It's Laura, Laura. But I'll always say Laura because that's just my name, Gabrielle Laura. That's what my family's always called me. That's what I know until I met my husband, and he's like, it's Laura. And I'm like, it's Laura. So most of you probably pronounce it as Laura, but I pronounce it as Laura. And Laura, the woman that I'm named after, is actually my grandmother, my father's mom. And she passed away very tragically in this freak accident when I was 9 weeks old. And I've always felt this very, very, very strong connection to her. And my dad would always tell me, like, and his sisters, how much I reminded them of their mom, and how much we had in common. And during my healing journey, which we're going to talk about a lot on this podcast, I did hypnotherapy. And my first channeling experience was with my grandmother, Laura. And I've met her in my lifetime, but I was literally like 2 weeks old. I don't remember at all. But I've always felt her physical presence around me, particularly when I got in a car accident, which I'll share in another podcast. I know that she was the one who protected me because I walked away without a scratch, which was an absolute miracle. And I was doing this hypnotherapy, and all of a sudden, it was her. It was my grandmother. And I've seen pictures of her, of course. I know what she looked like. It was my grandmother, and she was taking something out of her stomach and putting it in mine. And so it was my inner child, it was me, and then it was my grandmother. And the three of us were walking, and she looked at me and she was like, I've always had this gift, but it's time that I pass it off to you. And right away I knew it was intuition. And I was like, whoa. And it wasn't for about 6 or 7 months later that I found out I was a channeler, but that always stuck with me. And so I texted my aunt, actually, or I was seeing my aunt a few weeks after this experience, because she is the one who actually married us. And we were heading out to Pittsburgh to hang out with her before the wedding and make sure she had everything that she needed to be the officiant. And I asked her, and I was like, was she intuitive? And she said, that's what I miss about her the most, is that woman was so incredibly intuitive, and she could read anybody from a mile away. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't connect these dots until I realized I was a channeler, where I was like, holy cow, now that all makes sense. So her name was Laura, and it's literally no surprise that my team, my spiritual team, name is Laura. Now, it's not just my grandmother. I can feel there's like 5 or 6 other entities there, 2 of which I feel like have been in their human experience, and 3 more I feel like are just energies that haven't come into the human yet and may never come into the human experience. So that is my most recent gift, and it's taken me a while. Like, I want to say the word accept. It's taken me a while to understand it. And the reason why I say that is because when I do channelings and stuff, like, I know that Lara speaks through me. And I know that Lara is ready to share wisdom, just as you guys hear Abraham sharing wisdom. Lara has similar wisdom as well, and it's ready to share. So I've been working with Lara in understanding how that works. And it really comes down to like me removing my ego and allowing them to really just speak through me. So when I was at my retreat a couple weeks ago at this point, in Scottsdale, I asked the ladies if I could practice with them, and Lara guided them through a meditation. And it was really interesting because Lara chose to do an inner child meditation, and it was, I don't even have words for it. It was beautiful, it was crazy, and it just flew out of my mouth. So as a result, Lara is ready to rumble. She's ready to get out and ready to share this wisdom. And that's really why I wanted to start this podcast, because I want you guys to have the chance to meet Lara. I want you to have the chance to meet me in deeper depth, right? Really get to know me. And I want this to be a safe space. If you're going through a spiritual awakening, it is confusing as hell. And I will share my experience with it. It's in another episode because it's very long, but it is incredibly lonely. It is scary. It is frightening, and it's beautifully exciting. It's a whirlwind of emotions. I want this to be a safe space for you. I want this to be like modern day spirituality. I want this to be like millennial spirituality. I want this to be digestible spirituality stuff. I want you to be able to come to this podcast, feel safe, and have your questions answered. I want this to be interactive. I want you guys to ask questions. I want to be able to hop on here and answer those questions. I want this to feel like a safe space for you. I want to teach you how to manifest. I want to teach you how to manifest correctly. And I want you to feel like you can actually enjoy your life, because your life is meant to be enjoyed. Your life is meant to be enjoyed. And I want you to find that joy here on this podcast. So something that I want to share as well, something that I've personally been grappling with, is last night I was in bed journaling, and I was like, okay, do I want to section out the podcast, right? Like, if it's a personal story, say this is from Gabrielle. If it's a channeled episode, do I want to say this is from Lara or channeled? And I sat with it for a while, and I came to the conclusion that I am Lara and I am Gabrielle. And it doesn't feel good for me to really separate the two, because then it's confusing, right? It's like, what do people want? Do people want Lara? Do people want me? But I am all of that. I am all of that. So as a result, all of these episodes are going to be channeled. So there's going to be Gabrielle, the human experience is what I like to call it, like Gabrielle in her human form speaking, and Lara is going to speak through me. Something that I find tricky is, like, when I'm in a channeling session with a client, I will sometimes pause and be like, okay, now Lara's going to speak through me, or like your team's going to speak through me. But I don't want to have to pause and say that, because then it kind of throws me off of what they're trying to get through. So you're probably, the more you listen to this, you're going to hear me switch from Gabrielle to Lara. And I think that my voice sounds the same. It might be a little different when I'm in Lara. I don't know, but we're going to do this together. This is new for me. We're going to do this together. But when I start using words like we and they, I'm talking about we as in that's Lara's team. That's like the 6 entities there. And they as in, I don't know the context, either you guys or humans or whatever. But then when I start saying like I, obviously that's me, Gabrielle. I hope that's not confusing, but we're gonna figure it out together. But I'm not gonna section them off of when like I'm speaking when Laura's speaking through me or when it's Gabrielle. I think you guys are going to be able to notice, and that's the feedback that I've gotten from my friends, where they're like, we can tell when it's like Laura and we can tell when it's you. So I'm hoping that you guys can too, and I think that that's just a lot of my egos coming in here of that fear of sounding confusing, the fear of not doing this correctly, and the fear of, I don't know, all that shit. But I'm not giving into it anymore. I'm done giving into it. I'm gonna do this a little scared, and I'm just gonna do the damn thing. I want you guys to get to know me. I'm ready to bust out of the Instagram shit and be on here on this unfiltered podcast where I can swear if I want to swear, and I can just say whatever I want that is gonna help you guys out. And I can be in my blanket with my feet up on the bed, lounging in this chair doing it. So that's my goal for this podcast. I want this to be interactive. I really, really, really do. Oh, and then one more thing I want to say before I go into that. 2 things happen to me when I channel. I will get chills. And sometimes I say when I get chills, sometimes I don't if it's distracting. But I will try to highlight when I have chills because that's Laura emphasizing what I'm saying. For example, let's say I'm teaching you guys how to manifest and I get chills after I just say something. I will tell you because that's like an extra emphasis. That's as if Laura just said it in capital freaking letters. And then the other one is my releases. So if you guys have ever done a channeling session with me, back in the beginning when I was like doing one-off channeling sessions, I don't offer that anymore. You'll know that I burp. And I try to catch it before you can hear it, but I'm literally releasing energy or releasing resistance around what I just said. For example, let's say I'm talking about my own healing journey and I start like burping or kind of hiccuping. And like, I really try to catch it before you hear it, and I will not belch on this podcast. I will freaking try so hard not to. I rarely do. I can almost always catch it. But if I pause for a second, or if you're watching this on YouTube and I'm like hitting my chest, that's a release coming out. And that's relevant too, right? It's like a release of resistance around that. So it could be my personal resistance. It could be the collective's resistance around that, or it could just be an energy release. I take on a lot of energy when I channel, and so I'm just releasing it out. So don't mind me if you hear a little hiccup, if you hear a pause, if you hear a burp, that's a whole part of channeling. So I just want to include that in there too. But like I said, I want this to be interactive. I want this to be the go-to for you guys. And any questions you have, please let me know. I'm going to make an Instagram account for this podcast. I just like signed up for the username yesterday to make sure it wasn't taken. And this is going to be interactive, and this is going to be a safe space. I really, really, really appreciate you being here, and I can't wait to serve you. I can't wait to lead you, and I can't wait for Laura to share her wisdom with you. I love you guys. Thank you so much for giving me this platform to be able to do this. I'm so honored, and I'm here for you. Anything you need, you DM me on Instagram, you email me, I'm here for you. I love you. I hope you have a great day.